How about China? Wow. We are joined now by Holroyd Pearce. He's the interviewing director at CRCC Asia. They specialize in consulting, in internships, joining us from San Francisco. Holroyd, welcome.
Hi, Kathleen. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, first of all, tell us more about CRCC Asia.
Yeah, sure. So we've been running for over 5 years now, but it's really in the last 3 to 4 years that we've seen this tremendous growth in the internship side of our business. We arrange and facilitate work experience for U.S. students and students from other countries out in China. So they can go out for 1, 2, or 3 months and be placed in a real Chinese company in their industry, let's say finance, marketing, law, and get a real insight into what is going on in that side of the world and why it's so exciting over there.
How did you get involved in this? How did this business get started? What a great idea.
Well, I read Chinese at university, and let me just say it was a kind of a 10-year labor of sweating blood and learning all those characters. You know, there were so few people in my language class. I just really think that it's so important that the rest of the world starts to understand China, and we really try and build those bridges from the ground up, from really when people are young and they have the energy and the time to go out to China and really find out what's going on the ground. So that's why. Okay.
Well, so who pays for what? How do you make money on this?
So we do have some universities that work with us and have integrated the program. We're always looking to partner with more universities. We do also have the program open to individuals. So it could be that students themselves can save up or their parents will be willing to fund this to give them an edge. At the moment, the Chinese companies are typically offering unpaid internships because it's quite a risk for them.
But I mean, how do you make money?
Oh, so we charge the students, and there's obviously a tiny bit of profit in there to make sure that we can run our offices. We have teams on the ground in China setting up the placements, and we have teams here in the US and in the UK.
Okay. How much would it cost me if I was a student and I wanted to be an intern in China?
So it's about $2,500.
For about how long?
That'll be for a month, and it goes up for...
And then your travel and everything's on top of that? And your room and board and everything?
Your flight ticket is on top of that, but our program covers everything else. So visas, accommodation. We have a little social program as well, so you get business seminars, and you even get sort of karaoke events and
that sounds
fun
like
times.
That. Now, do you have to speak Chinese?
No, you don't, actually.
Wow.
I would say 90% of the people going on our program don't speak any Chinese. The remainder maybe have some Chinese roots or have taken Chinese classes, and they'll get a different experience, obviously, but for non-Chinese speakers, it's absolutely fine. We ensure that there's an English-speaking supervisor in each company we work with.
Well, that sounds so cool. Well, let's also put this in the context of President Obama's 100,000 strong initiative, which was launched by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton back in May of 2010.
Sure. I mean, we absolutely love the initiative, and we're very, very pleased to, be pushing in the same direction.
And what is it? Explain to our listeners. They may not know about it.
Oh, sure. Well, essentially, President Obama and Clinton decided how important it is for U.S. youth students to engage with China, and they're trying to make those placements and those opportunities more widely available. So people from all sorts of backgrounds. You may not have considered going abroad at all, but let's face it, the world is getting smaller and it's a more global marketplace. So whatever background you're from, you should be able to access that kind of global experience that will give you that edge.
Indeed. Don Strausheim, who is a managing director at ISI Group. Don's based out in Southern California. He, for years, was the chief economist at the old Merrill Lynch. At any rate, he's been a China consultant, analyst, running his own firm, running up recently with ISI Group for about 10 years. He says the U.S., in his mind, the U.S.-China relationship is the most important bilateral relationship in the world.
I think that's very true. I would absolutely go with that. If you just think about how many U.S. students and even, adults travel to Europe or, South America, Mexico, and understand those cultures just through their own background and through their own holiday experiences. But when you look at China, the percentage is so much smaller. And yet China is so important to the US and to the other, major economies of the world today. So we just can't afford to sit back and think, oh, it's on the other side of the world, I don't really need to know about it.
And how many kids, or I'm sure not all kids, but how many people, how many students have gone to China through your program so far?
So thus far we've arranged about 3,000 internships. The last year, 2011, took up about 1,000 of those. So we've basically been doubling our numbers each year for the past 3 years.
Well, how interesting. What a great business to be in. We're going to continue our conversation with Edward Pearce from CRCC Asia, talking about internships in China. How much could this give a U.S. student a boost looking for a job here in the United States? What are the promises and pitfalls? Next on Bloomberg Radio. Oh, Edward Pearce, CRCC Asia, joining me from San Francisco. He is the director of interviewing. Is that correct, Edward?
That's right. I'm here looking at building new links with U.S. universities who may want to integrate our internship China program into their courses.
What do the Chinese companies get out of this?
So for the majority of Chinese companies we work with, they're kind of medium-sized. We do work with some big players as well. But for them, it's often the first step into thinking about taking some expat staff on. For them, they might think that they don't have enough budget. They might worry about cultural issues with taking on a Western member of staff. So they can take on one of these, great young interns from the US or from the UK for 1, 2, or 3 months and give them some projects, see how they perform, and see if it works. See if it works in their office, see how their own Chinese staff respond to it. And then who knows, maybe next time they'll be saying, well, actually, we could take on some middle managers from America. We could take on some, more senior people. That, I think, is the way most of the companies we work with are seeing this opportunity.
So like any company that would take in interns, because lots of times people snatch up the bright-eyed, hard-working, enthusiastic kid who comes in and spends a few weeks in the office.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, at the moment, about 30 to 35% of the people going on our program are getting some sort of offer from their companies in China to stay out there.
Wow.
But it's not, it's not for everybody. Lots of people are looking at it as just a standalone experience.
Sure.
Go out to China and then come back here and leverage that experience in the U.S. job market.
Do you have any evidence of how much the internship in China is helping people who've gone through the program get a job here in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we touch base with our alumni all the time, and we have regular alumni events, so we keep on top of, who's getting what offers. We have people, we have, people in Bloomberg, New York. We have people everywhere, and pretty much everyone I speak to is willing to say that it was during their interview, they started talking about their experience in China, and they were able to talk confidently about something that the interviewer was interested in.
Well, I would tell people if they're listening and they want to get more information, you can go to the CRCC website and you can find a place where you can click on the actual people who have been and their stories. I'm looking at Phoebe Pender, who was a legal intern in July 2000.
You just picked the pretty one, didn't you?
Oh, she's a cute blonde. Well, and a very sweet smile on Natasha Walcott, a marketing intern that year. It looks like a Chinese American, Quan Ling, who was a business intern, Alexander Lesher, an environmental intern. All of them obviously very enthusiastic, all of them noting the cultural experience, right? Just like the travel experience, but also the getting some really insights and business experience as well.
Yeah, I think, you don't really know until you're on the ground in China the difference that some of these things make. It's like the importance of food and business dining and business banquets, and our companies are always encouraged to take the interns out to lunch or to a business dinner. So the interns really get first-hand experience of, oh crikey, what do I do with that, delicacy of sea cucumber, which actually I can't eat. How do I say that I can't eat it without being rude and ruining this business dinner? It's just little things like that, and they take away personal stories, personal experiences that can stay with them for a lifetime.
And I'm looking at Alexander Lesher's experience. He went to Purdue, and he was an environmental intern, and he says, I still work for the company that I interned at in Beijing under contract as a trade advisor. Attended several conferences appealing to different environmental technologies in the United States to bring those technologies to China. So that's interesting. Another sort of job opportunity that might come out of it, working for a Chinese company but doing so in the U.S.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think, there are so many Chinese companies that are going global, coming over here to the U.S., that having some experience on the ground in China just makes you much more appealing to those kind of companies. The other thing we're seeing a big trend in is Chinese tourists and Chinese business visitors coming to the U.S. and really just requiring a bit more understanding. For example, in hotels, hotels in Los Angeles and San Francisco are starting to provide things that are more more popular and more prevalent in Chinese hotels. So things like, your slippers and your rice porridge at breakfast, chopsticks,
sure,
things like that. Just little changes. And we've had quite a lot of interest and news from those type of employers in the U.S. that are saying we'd love to get our hands on these kind of global graduates.
Well, now this is what I was wondering too. Is this only for students, or could someone who's maybe just retired and contemplating another career in that later part of life go on this kind of program?
We have had people of all ages. The majority are between about 18 and 30. But we do get a lot of people, like you say, career change. Maybe they've been reading law for the last 6 years, and they've done a couple of years in a law firm, and they're just like, wow, this is not for me. I'm a natural marketing person, but how do I show that on my CV, my resume, and how do I make myself appear more global?
Right.
And our internship is kind of one way of doing that.
Edward Pearce, if we want more information, the website?
Yep, CRCCasia.com.
Well, that's easy enough. Thank you so much. I'll tweet that too.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Great to speak to you.
Lovely having you on the show, Edward. He's the interviewing director at CRCC Asia. They arrange internships for students to China.